Back in Baghdad, Sinbad lived a life of absolute luxury. His first voyage made him remarkably wealthy. He lacked for no comfort. Yet the salt air and the unknown pulled him back to the seaport at Basra, where he booked passage on a newly made ship. The second voyage started with clear skies and highly profitable trading. Cruising from port to port, the crew eventually dropped anchor at a lush, seemingly idyllic island covered in green trees and running streams, eager for a few hours of rest. Sinbad found a quiet spot, ate his lunch, and drifted into a pleasant sleep. But when he woke up, he found the beach empty. There were fruit skins, the smoky remains of a fire, and footprints in the sand. But his crew had already set sail without him. Standing alone on the shore, the weight of his new reality set in. The silken cushions and servants of Baghdad were gone, replaced by a desert island and a bed of dead leaves. To survive, a man accustomed to buying his way out of every problem in civilization would now have to rely entirely on his wits in a hostile environment. Realizing no ship was coming back for him, Sinbad climbed to the top of the tallest tree he could find to scout the island. In the distance, he spotted a massive, perfectly smooth white dome rising out of the landscape. As he approached the dome, a shadow larger than a storm cloud engulfed the clearing. A roc, a bird of prey from ancient lore, descended, its massive wings flattening the trees as it landed to brood upon its egg. Sinbad made a desperate, highly calculated gamble. Crawling from the underbrush, he crept up to the giant claw and used his turban to lash his body directly to the monster's leg. At daybreak, the roc launched into the air with violent gusts of wind. It carried Sinbad high above the ocean before finally dropping him into a land of jagged rocks, lava, and smoking volcanoes. His bold risk successfully removed him from the island, only to abandon him in an even more lethal environment. This diagram shows a cross-section of the ravine. Sheer rock walls set at impossibly steep angles trap him in a natural prison. Zooming in reveals a startling detail. The ground is encrusted with priceless diamonds, guarded by giant serpents, large enough to swallow an elephant. He spent his first day and night barricaded inside a small cave, piling up rocks at the entrance to keep the predators out, as their red eyes glowed in the pitch-black darkness. The psychological toll of his situation was immediate. Deep in the night, he realized he was sharing the far end of his cramped refuge with a massive, brooding serpent resting on her eggs, leaving him quaking in terror until daylight. This valley is the ultimate inversion of a merchant's world. Surrounding him was enough wealth to buy an entire kingdom, but with zero chance of physical survival, those infinite riches meant absolutely nothing. At daybreak, the survival situation turned completely bizarre. Massive slabs of raw, butchered meat suddenly rained down from the sky, crashing onto the rocky floor of the valley. This flowchart maps an obscure tale. Merchants drop raw meat into the canyon. Diamonds stick to it. Eagles airlift the meat to their nests, and merchants collect the prize. To escape, Sinbad hijacked this cycle, lashing a massive diamond-encrusted slab to his chest. He lay flat against the rocks and waited. Minutes later, a giant eagle swooped down, locked its talons into the raw meat, and effortlessly airlifted Sinbad straight out of the deadly canyon. By recalling obscure lore, Sinbad turned a deadly apex predator into his only way out of the canyon, surviving where physical strength alone would have failed. When the eagle dropped him into its nest, a group of shouting merchants rushed in to scare the bird away. They expected to find diamond-crusted meat, but were met instead by a living man waving his arms in greeting. Sinbad immediately diffused their anger. He reached into his pockets and offered to share the staggering wealth of diamonds he had carried up the mountain with the men who had dropped the meat. The group spent 2 grueling days trekking out of the mountain range. To survive the descent, they had to constantly monitor the wind, masking their scent from aggressive, heavily horned rhinoceroses that could trample a man in seconds. Safely reaching a port, Sinbad sailed back to Baghdad. He sold off his valley diamonds, securing a fortune that easily doubled the massive wealth he already had. Safe within the walls of his luxury estate, he swore to his friends that he would never walk up the gangplank of a ship again. It was a promise he would eventually find himself